Evet, hoş geldiniz Selva ve Gregers Tang Thomsen. Ee, Biz bugün her zamankinden farklı bir formatta götüreceğiz söyleşimizi. Yarı İngilizce, yarı Türkçe. Belki gidişata göre biri çok, biri az olabilir ama çünkü bu ikiliden bir tanesi Türkçe aslında konuşuyorsun ama belki bu şeye katılacak kadar değil ya da İngilizceyi tercih edebilirsin. So I'll shift to English time to time for guaranteeing your contribution to the conversation. I think you are already familiar with what we are doing in this Kalebodur Mimarlarla Konuşuyor series. We are trying to talk with some of the architects, architectural critics, academicians, and trying to obtain a general image of what's happening in the field of contemporary Turkish architecture. And it will turn into a kind of a collection, a DVD collection probably. Plus, maybe we are going to publish some of it. I don't know. The project is a sustainable one. At least I hope it like that. And today we are with a very unique group because of many reasons, actually. One of them was, as we were talking, you haven't built anything yet. Am I right?
It's not true.
I mean, I may be exaggerating, but that is a very significant point because till now we have been with Emre, Han. I mean, not Nevzat yet, but Gökhan, and we couldn't know which building to talk about because there were lots of built examples. So. One of the significant features of this conversation is that. Am I right, Selva?
Yani evet 7 senelik pratiğe göre 2 tane bina var. Biriyle ev sahibi müşteriyle kavgalık olduğumuz için pek fazla bahsetmiyoruz. Bir tanesi
belki
proje.
Belki o nedenle webde de görmedim ben öyle mi?
Yok evet. Ondan sonra yani konsept aşamaları var da bitmiş hali yok. Bir tane Danimarka'da şimdi bitmek üzere olan bir beton var, pavyon var. O sürekli olarak kalacak ama
onu gördüm galiba.
Evet. Bu Taylor Creed projesinin son ürünü olarak bir tane bir şey var. Bir de bir satış ofisi var ama sonra proje iptal olduğu için satış ofisinde bir anlamı kalmadı. Böyle evet inşa edilmiş.
But are there projects on the table?
For building? Yes, actually. We will have this one apartment building. This kind of a story. Ben de şimdi böyle İngilizceden Türkçe'ye geçerken çok karmakarışık olmaz umarım. Benim ailemin ev sahibi olduğu bir binada binanın tekrar yıkılıp yapılması söz konusu oldu. Onun mimarisini üstlendik. Komşular inşallah bizi işten atmazsa onu yapacağız.
Evet. Maybe the other reason that makes you unique is the formation of the group. Gregers is coming from, as far as I know, Netherlands or Aarhus, Denmark.
Yes.
You have studied in Aarhus.
Yes, I'm studying in Aarhus.
Yeah, which is actually an architectural school I like very much. I've been there twice, and you have been worked in Netherlands together, as far as I know, and you have been in States for a while. Then you decided to come to Turkey together. Now you are practicing here, so you are representing many cultures, many geographies at a time, and that's called Superpool. What does Superpool means?
Superpool for us is a name that tries to reflect that architecture is not one man's work, in our opinion. Basically, you need to pool a lot of resources together to
integrated design, collaboration.
Yeah, and we also enjoy that a lot. I mean, for us, that's the way where we get to work with the most interesting people, because on project basis, we invite the people that let's say can contribute and complement us the best. So it's a way of for us to get the best out of any given situation in some ways.
I think that characteristics coming from outside also gives a chance, besides many difficulties, I'm sure, gives a chance to look from the outside. So it gains a kind of a critical distance to whatever happening here. How do you see the Turkish context? I mean, of course, there may be time-wise differences when you first interacted and now, but in general, as a foreign architect, let me say, you are not foreign anymore. How do they call him? Like damat or enişte?
Yeah, or still yabancı. But every day on the ferry, yeah. No, but I think, obviously, actually when we arrived to Istanbul, Selva had been away for 7 years, studying and working abroad. And she had this foreigner with her coming back to Istanbul. So in some ways we had to rediscover the city together, because 7 years being away from Istanbul is a lifetime somewhere else. So of course that...
But you were familiar with Istanbul. You are originally from Istanbul.
Evet, ben İstanbulluyum ama yani lise çağını ve yani çocukluğunu ve lise çağını İstanbul'da geçirmiş biriyim. Hani üniversiteye de İstanbul Teknik'te başladım burada ama burada bitirmedim. Los Angeles'ta bitirdim. Biz ve bunu hep şey olarak düşünüyorum. Yani burada çocukluğunu yaşamakla gelip bir mimar olarak şehir üzerine bir şey söylemeye çalışmak birbirinden çok farklı şeyler. Yani ben de sıfırdan başladım bir yerde. Ve biz bu sıfırdan başlamayı nedense hep tuttuk. Yani 7 senedir hala sıfırdan başlıyormuş gibi hissediyoruz bazı konularda. Çünkü öyle bir merakla şehre yaklaşmak iyi geliyor. Yani sürekli bilmediğin şeyleri fark edip işte bunu da öğrenelim, şu da ne, bak hani ilk yaptığımız işlerden biriydi bu dolmuş minibüs haritası ve tamamen hani mesela meraktan ve bir kendimize ve Gregers'a şehri anlatmaya çalışma ihtiyacından doğmuştu.
Talk about technology and material as the essence of this innovative or research-based architecture. I think this Taylor Creed project is very significant and important.
Yes.
It's is it a European project or initiated by the?
It's a collaborative project. The funding comes from European Commission. It's under the FP7 projects. The essence was to look into robotics and how they could be, or how the concrete industry could be kind of revolutionized with automation. And it has 14 partners. It's lasted 4 years. It's just finishing now. And the idea was to look in different pieces of the concrete industry, so from formwork to the actual concrete mix, the self-compacting concrete, to the reinforcement that goes inside, to the design tools and so forth, and create a sort of to take each part of the technology one step further. Maybe you can talk about what was accomplished.
It was very interesting because I mean it's one of the areas that Turkey can be really innovative in such an industry. We are very good and experienced on producing reinforced concrete, and there are lots of possibilities, etc. So, but I mean, when you look at the traditional modes of production, it is very repetitive, and there are not much innovative challenges. So, I mean, anything that contributes to this field will be very valuable. I think. I hope the results are showing something.
Yeah, well, I mean, we will here in the summer or in the early spring we will be finished with the prototype building that was built to demonstrate all the, let's say, possibilities and new innovations. Of course, within the European context, where labor cost is very expensive, the use of automation is the only way in order to be able to build, let's say, more complex geometries in concrete. In Turkey, we still have, and it goes back to our interest in materials and production, is that we still have a mix of craftsmanship and also high-end technologies. Where we see in Europe, most of the manufacturing capacity is slowly disappearing. Right, it's moved to Far East or even to Turkey. Right, but what Turkey has at the moment is quite unique. That there is still capacity for production.
And increasing.
Yeah, increasing, but also it's still not outsourced. Yeah, and Vaco is a core example of that.
And to go back to the issue of style and kind of this innovation technology, material research, this has been sort of a part of also the education at our home office, OMA, basically, that the argument for, or kind of the way to argue for aesthetics has always been somehow related to an innovation or a technique or a way of using a material in an unexpected way. So it becomes an interesting challenge to carry on in life as a designer. Like how,
of course, culture on the other hand.
Yes.
Technology and innovation on one hand, but the culture that will appreciate and accept it. So
sure.
It's a kind of sometimes a kind of accelerating effect on,
sure.
Or sometimes it's a kind of obstacle or boundary.
Sure, yeah. That is true. But we think that this is still worth trying, though. While when we have still a small office and our costs are not so high that we can still afford to be experimental, it's important, I think, to keep that. And of course, after a point, the bigger the office, then some things become more difficult.
Isn't it contradictory? I mean, I was always thinking that when your office is bigger and you have lots of opportunities, bigger, let's say, better clients, etc., you have a chance to experiment more, and you can maybe reserve a budget for innovation and research. But it doesn't happen usually.
No, I guess it's
most of the small and young offices in Turkey are innovative and research-based, whereas the big offices doesn't.
I think there's two ways. I think there's two ways to answer this. One is the kind of the general context where we don't tie it to Turkey. I think you have to cultivate this when you're younger. So if you hopefully, if you have it, you can kind of continue it. But it's probably more difficult to get into it afterwards, maybe. But I always think in Turkey, like the generation before us of Emre Aralat and Hantu Mertekin, and they had another duty, I think.
They became the older generation. They are my generation. Be careful.
Sorry, it's okay. We're also turning.
We are the older generation now.
We're not that young either, but not so far away. But I mean, their fight was a different fight, I think, and they had to kind of show that a quality building could be built.
That's true.
And I think they have opened up an immense kind of playing ground for us. Without them, we wouldn't be able to play on whatever in robotics and concrete. We would still be trying to convince the müteahhit to build something that was halfway decent. Now we can show, hey, but if you want a good building, take a look at what Emre Bey has done. And if you want that, it costs so much, in construction budget, not even design budget. So, I mean, they had another fight to give, and I think that's super important to appreciate that fact. And we now have the luxury and the kind of, let's say, playroom to do something a bit more research oriented.